Hi, I'm Johnny Kay and welcome to Spotlight on GCSE English Language. This series of videos will help you to develop your understanding of the key questions in both GCSE English Language exam papers by looking at what the question is asking you to do, what you should include in your answer, common mistakes to avoid, and top tips. In this episode, we'll be covering Paper 1, Question 4. Paper 1, Question 4 assesses your reading skills. This means that you're being assessed on how you evaluate text critically and support your answer with appropriate references. So, what does this look like? For this question, you should spend 20 minutes writing your response. A simple way to remember timings for your exam is to use the number of marks for how long you should spend answering the question. This question will ask you to look at a certain part of the text. To give yourself the best possible chance of writing an effective answer, it's important that you only quote and reference this specific part of the text. Any quotes from other areas of the text will not be rewarded. If you need to, you can highlight, label, or draw a box around this part of the text to help. As well as being focused on one part of the text, Question 4 will provide you with a statement someone has made about the text. You'll be asked how much you agree with this statement, and you'll be given 3 bullet points which will give suggestions about what your answer might contain. This question is asking you to do 2 things. Evaluate the statement in the question whilst taking into account the ideas in the text, and evaluate the methods the writer uses to express those ideas. So, what should you include in your answer? Let's take a look. It's important to remember that you can fully or partially agree or disagree with the statement, as long as you can explain and provide evidence for your answer by using quotations or references. References include paraphrasing or discussing the main events in the section, or you could lift sections from the text in your response. You can also aim for a more balanced response, giving an answer which agrees and disagrees, but this is more difficult to do. Evidence is one of the key parts of the question that you'll be assessed on, and it also helps to show that you understand the text and that you're able to evaluate it and the techniques the writer uses. Again, it's very important that you plan your answers, as this will help to make sure that you give a fully rounded, structured response. You should spend around 4 minutes planning, including time rereading the relevant section of the text. Let's break down the question. When examiners are marking your answer, they're looking for 4 main parts. A response to the statement, so do you agree or disagree? Do you understand the writer's methods? Have you given evidence or quotations to support your answer? And can you discuss how the text, writer's methods, or quotation affect the reader? The more effectively you can do each of these 4 elements, the more marks you will be awarded. But what do you need to include to do this? Look at the statement you're given. It'll usually have 2 parts to it. Let's look at our example. In your answer, you should be looking to respond to both of these parts of this statement. It's also possible to agree with the first part of the statement and disagree with the second part, and vice versa. When you've decided whether you agree or disagree, or a mix of both, you're then asked to evaluate how the writer shows certain ideas. This means that the question is asking you to make a judgment or judgments, to weigh up, consider, and give your opinion on the statement. Do you agree or disagree? And what do you think? Why do you think this? In giving an answer to why you think this, you're being asked to look at and evaluate, so judge, weigh up, give your opinion on what the writer does to influence your opinion, the methods the writer has used. But what do we mean when we talk about methods? When we talk about writer's methods, we mean the techniques the writer has used to communicate certain ideas or themes. This can be done using language features like similes, metaphors, or specific vocabulary. However, it can also mean looking at the writer's tone, the mood or emotion they convey, or structural features such as the order of events or shifts in focus or pace. These are the features which would help you to decide whether you agree, disagree, or have a balanced response to the statement. So it's really important that you explain why these features have made you agree or disagree with the statement. A simple and effective method to explain why the writer's methods have helped you to agree or disagree is to evaluate the evidence you used, so the quote, and the impact that quote had on you. What it made you think or feel, and then discuss why it makes you think or feel this way. If you struggle with this, try putting yourself in the shoes of the character saying the quote, or in the same situation and thinking about what you would be thinking or feeling. What does the quote make the reader think will happen next, and why do you think this? For this question, you need to give your opinion. Do you agree or disagree with your statement? Give evidence to back up your answer. Why do you agree or disagree? What methods does the writer use to make you think this? Describe the impact of the evidence. What effect do the writer's methods have on the reader? What do the writer's methods make us think or feel? Why do we think or feel this way? Let's look at an example. For this example, we'll look at part of an answer which was given 12 marks. In this answer, we can see that the student is immediately given their opinion and almost straight away begins evidencing the reasons why they agree by using quotations. Having started to give quotations for evidence, the student is also clearly evaluating throughout the opening sentences. The student then begins to explain the effect on the reader and finishes by summarising their thoughts on the initial statement in the question. Remember, your answer doesn't have to follow a set structure. You can add quotes, discuss writer's methods, and talk about the effect on the reader in any order. If you're struggling to get started on this question, think about: do I agree or disagree? Why do I agree or disagree? What events or actions make me agree or disagree? What methods has the writer used to talk about these events or actions? Give an example of this method in a quote and say what the quote means or shows. What does the quote make the reader think or feel, and why? The more detail you give in your response, the more marks you'll be awarded. This means that if you can clearly show that you understand how the writer uses methods, you're much more likely to gain higher marks. You can do this by making sure you quote effectively. If you make a statement, make sure you give a quote to evidence that statement. Talk about what methods, language, structure, tone, imagery, etc. are being used in the quote, and talk about how this quote affects the reader, how it makes the reader think or feel. We've looked at how to give an effective answer, but what should you avoid? Let's look at the things you don't want to include in your answer. You won't get extra marks for saying the same thing over and over again, so it is important to read back through your work and make sure you're not repeating yourself. Spending lots of time copying out lengthy quotes and then not explaining what they mean or which of the writer's methods is being used is likely to cost you marks. You also won't be awarded for using overly long quotes. Only quote what you need. Remember that giving your opinion is important, but you should also talk about how the writer has made you come to this conclusion. What methods have they used? Where and why? For Paper 1 Question 4, remember these top tips. Planning and rereading the relevant part of the text is key. Give yourself strict time deadlines for planning and writing your answer. Give your opinion, use relevant evidence, discuss the writer's methods in the text, and talk about how this affects the reader. There are no right or wrong answers as long as you evidence. Use sentence starters such as, I agree with the statement that. Firstly, I agree because the writer says. When the writer uses, it makes the reader feel, because. Check out the other videos in this series for Paper 1 Question 5, Paper 2 Question 4 and Paper 2 Question 5.